Welcome back, Coinology. In the vast landscape of American numismatics, where each coin tells a silent story of time, craftsmanship, and national memory, there exists one humble yet extraordinary piece that has fascinated collectors, historians, and dreamers alike: the 1987 D Lincoln cent. At first glance, it appears to be just another 1-cent piece, a tiny copper-plated disc that once slipped unnoticed from pocket to pocket, from cash register to child's piggy bank. Yet beneath its worn surface lies a saga of industrial change, design evolution, and cultural significance that reaches far beyond its face value. It is a story of America itself, its economy, its artistry, and the enduring human fascination with the symbols that carry our shared identity. The year was 1987. The world stood in transition, technology was reshaping industries, the Cold War was inching toward its end, and America was riding a wave of economic optimism shadowed by uncertainty. Inside the United States Mint, deep in the production halls of Denver, millions of small copper-plated zinc coins were being struck, each bearing the enduring image of, for most people, these coins would represent nothing more than a penny, a trivial, almost forgotten unit of currency. But for collectors, historians, and those who understand the poetry of metal and minting, each cent tells a story of continuity. The 1987 D was born into an era of transition for American coinage. It carried within its small circle the echoes of the monumental change that had occurred just 5 years earlier, when in 1982 the mint had replaced the traditional bronze alloy, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, with a new composition, Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. That design, showing Lincoln's profile facing right, was revolutionary for its time. It marked the first occasion when an actual historical figure, rather than an allegorical symbol, appeared on a regular issue U.S. coin. The decision was controversial in 1909 but ultimately enduring. By 1987, Brenner's portrait had become not only a numismatic fixture but also a cultural icon. The detail of Lincoln's beard, the calm resolve in his expression, and the graceful curvature of his coat remain symbols of dignity, equality, and national unity. On the reverse side, the familiar Lincoln memorial design, crafted by Frank Gasparo, stood as a miniature architectural marvel. Introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, it replaced the earlier wheat ears motif. The memorial design was intricate, capable of showing even the tiny figure of the seated Lincoln between the columns if viewed under magnification. For the 1987 D cent, this design was rendered with precision, its lines clean and symmetrical, a reflection of both artistry and industrial perfection. But beyond the physical features, the 1987 D cent occupies a unique place in the collector's imagination because of the mythos that has grown around it. Stories of rare die varieties, minting errors, and unexplained anomalies have fueled fascination. Some of these coins bear small imperfections, doubled dies, off-center strikes, or filled mint marks that transform an ordinary penny into a priceless artifact. The idea that a single 1987 D penny could one day fetch millions of dollars has captivated enthusiasts, leading to a modern legend that certain specimens, flawless in preservation or extraordinary in error, have achieved astronomical valuations in private sales, rumored to reach figures as high as $15,600 million, a symbolic exaggeration that reflects more the depth of fascination than the reality of market value. Yet behind every myth lies a kernel of truth. The rarest coins in existence often owe their value to stories, to the invisible chain that links a small piece of metal to moments in human history. The 1987 D, though produced in staggering numbers, over 4.3 billion pieces, still has its outliers. A small handful of specimens were struck with exceptional clarity, preserved in mint-state condition, untouched by circulation. These pristine examples, graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC, command real prices far beyond face value, sometimes hundreds or thousands of dollars. But in the imagination of collectors and storytellers, value is not merely economic, it is emotional, cultural, and historical. Each cent struck in Denver in 1987 carries within it the spirit of the mint workers who operated the massive Schuler presses, machines capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Inside those halls, the scent of lubricated metal and the rhythmic hum of machinery created a kind of industrial symphony. Molten zinc, cooled and rolled into thin strips, was punched into blanks, small discs waiting for identity. These blanks were fed into the coining presses where dies, engraved with Lincoln's portrait and the memorial reverse, met metal with immense pressure. In that fraction of a second, identity was born. The coin received its face, its mint mark, its date, and its destiny. Most coins left the mint to enter circulation, living anonymous lives in the everyday economy. But a few, untouched and gleaming, were set aside by collectors, sealed in protective holders, and forgotten in drawers for decades. When rediscovered, their brilliance reawakens the story of a nation in miniature. Each shining 1987 D penny, when examined under magnification, reveals the tiniest traces of engraving artistry, the sharpness of the letters Liberty, the delicate curvature of the motto In God We Trust, the clean strike of the mint mark D. These small details, invisible to the casual observer, become the fingerprints of authenticity and craftsmanship. The symbolism of the Lincoln cent runs deeper still. For over a century, it has served as a quiet messenger of values that define the American story. The word liberty, etched to the left of Lincoln's portrait, reminds citizens of the freedom fought for and preserved across generations. The motto "In God We Trust," first appearing on coins during the Civil War and later adopted universally, speaks to the spiritual heritage of a diverse nation. The simple phrase "E pluribus unum" out of many, one, appearing on the reverse above the memorial, encapsulates the unity that binds a complex society. These inscriptions are not merely decorative, they are philosophical statements cast into metal, carried in pockets, and passed hand to hand through every layer of society. High in the grand timeline of coinage, the 1987 D is a link in a chain stretching from the early copper cents of 1793 to the digital currencies of today. It is both ancient and modern, produced in an industrial age yet designed with classical ideals. As the century neared its close, the penny remained a symbol of continuity amid rapid change. Credit cards, ATMs, and electronic transactions were already transforming the way people handled money, yet the tactile presence of a coin still held emotional power. Collectors who examine the 1987 D today do so not merely to assess value but to touch a piece of history. The gleam of copper under light, the soft ridges along the edge, and the unmistakable profile of Lincoln evoke a sense of time travel. Every scratch and blemish tells a story, perhaps of a child's first savings, a grocery store exchange, or a coin jar kept on a kitchen shelf for decades. Each mark is evidence of use, of passage through countless human hands. When numismatists catalog the varieties and conditions of the 1987 D, they often speak in precise terms: MS67, red luster, strong strike, die crack, repunched mint mark. Yet beyond these technicalities lies something less tangible, the quiet poetry of smallness. A single cent, seemingly worthless in modern commerce, becomes priceless when seen as a fragment of collective memory, and so the legend continues. Some claim that hidden among the billions is a unique piece, a minting anomaly of extraordinary rarity, a coin that escaped error detection and exists as a singular masterpiece. Whether such a coin truly exists or not is almost beside the point. What matters is the myth, the dream that keeps collectors searching, magnifiers in hand, under the soft glow of desk lamps. In every roll of pennies, they see potential treasure, a story waiting to be told. Part 1 closes on this thought. The 1987 D Lincoln cent is not just currency, it is a conversation across time, a whisper of American identity pressed into metal. It stands as proof that even the smallest object can carry the weight of history, artistry, and imagination. As the decades passed, the 1987 D Lincoln cent moved quietly through the currents of American life. Most of the billions produced in Denver found their way into circulation, bearing the microscopic wear of countless exchanges. They passed through hands that belonged to construction workers buying coffee, schoolchildren saving for candy, and collectors inspecting rolls from banks in search of perfection. Every coin that remained in circulation carried microscopic traces of time, minute scratches, faint discolorations, subtle flattening of Lincoln's cheek and coat. These details, almost invisible, became signatures of use, and in the world of numismatics, such signs of age told their own stories. To understand the coin's true nature, one must return to the process that gave it life. Inside the Denver Mint, precision governed every motion. Metal sheets of zinc, plated with copper to the thickness of a human hair, were fed into immense blanking presses. Each blank emerged as a perfect circle, shing copper and zin a magnetic charm. A doubled die, in which the image appears slightly offset, transforms a common cent into a treasure. An off-center strike reveals the raw blank beneath, exposing the delicate boundary where art meets accident. Such errors humanize the industrial process. They remind us that even machines operated by precise control still echo the unpredictability of craftsmanship. Over the years, rumors circulated of 1987 D cents bearing faint doubling on the date or mint mark, though verified examples remain elusive. The very possibility keeps collectors searching, eyes sharpened through magnifying lenses, hearts quickened by the thrill of discovery. Outside the realm of minting, the cultural backdrop of 1987 deepened the coin's resonance. It was a year of change and momentum. The stock market soared before its dramatic crash in October. Computers were beginning to infiltrate homes, and the first signs of a digital future were emerging. In this context, the Lincoln cent served as a quiet constant, a tangible link to a simpler form of commerce. It moved through grocery stores, vending machines, and parking meters, objects of routine that connected ordinary lives. In a society hurtling toward abstraction, the penny remained real, physical, and human. There is poetry in the persistence of a small coin. To the untrained eye, it is trivial; to the historian, it is evidence of continuity. The 1987 D, struck from the modern copper-plated zinc planchet, carried forward the lineage of Lincoln's portrait into the late 20th century. It bore the same inscriptions that had graced coins for generations: "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year below Lincoln's profile. On the reverse, the stately Lincoln Memorial stood framed by United States of America and 1 cent, with E pluribus unum arched above the marble roofline. Every letter, every column, every subtle contour serves not only as decoration but as a reaffirmation of national identity. The weight of 2.5 grams, though seemingly insignificant, represented the delicate balance of economy and artistry. When the composition changed in 1982, metallurgists feared that the lighter planchet might alter the coin's durability. But by 1987, the experiment had proven stable, the copper coating resisted corrosion, and the zinc core maintained structural integrity. Under laboratory analysis, each coin revealed layers of precision: a copper shell of roughly 8 microns, chemically bonded to the underlying zinc by heat and electroplating. That union of metals mirrored the union of states, distinct elements fused into one enduring whole. Collectors often speak of patina, the natural toning that develops on copper surfaces over time. The 1987 D, in its uncirculated state, gleams with a bright red hue, what numismatists call red, the highest luster classification. As years pass, exposure to air, humidity, and human touch gradually dims that radiance, shifting it through red-brown to brown. Each stage of toning is a fingerprint of history, a slow oxidation that transforms brilliance into character. A coin stored in a dry environment may remain vivid for decades, while another kept in a pocket for a single year darkens to earthy shades. In both conditions lies beauty: one preserves youth, the other acquires wisdom. In the numismatic marketplace, preservation is paramount. A single 1987 D penny graded MS68 red, meaning nearly flawless, with mirror-like surfaces, may command significant value among specialists. Auction records document modest but notable prices for such specimens, not because of intrinsic rarity but because perfection amid billions is itself a rarity. To achieve that level of preservation requires patience, precision, and perhaps luck: a roll of coins unsearched, a mint set unopened, a forgotten bag sealed for decades. When one of these surfaces, the collector community takes notice, and the humble cent once again becomes a headline. The myth of extraordinary worth, $15,600 million, belongs to legend, an exaggeration that symbolizes fascination rather than fiscal reality. Yet it speaks to something deeper: the human desire to find greatness in the ordinary. People are drawn to the idea that an everyday object might conceal unimaginable value, that within the change in their pockets lies a hidden fortune. This psychological allure fuels entire economies of collecting, from baseball cards to postage stamps, and coins stand at the heart of it. The penny's minimal face value makes it universally accessible: anyone can participate in the dream. Beneath the microscope of history, the 1987 D cent reflects the broader evolution of American coinage philosophy. In the 19th century, coins were functional instruments of trade. By the 20th, they had become symbols of heritage. By the late 20th, as electronic transactions spread, coins entered the realm of nostalgia. Each new technological advance, credit cards, online payments, digital wallets, pushed physical currency closer to obsolescence, yet the cent endured. The 1987 D existed at that intersection, embodying both utility and sentiment. It was still used daily, yet already, for some, it represented a relic of tactile value. One cannot discuss the Lincoln cent without considering the figure whose likeness it bears. Abraham Lincoln's visage had graced American coinage longer than any other individual's. His steady gaze, immortalized by Brenner's sculptural skill, symbolized honesty, unity, and moral courage. To hold a 1987 D penny was, in a quiet sense, to hold a fragment of Lincoln's legacy. The coin's endurance mirrored his own, a reminder that ideas, once minted in the conscience of a nation, outlast the tumults of history. Imagine, for a moment, the life of a single 1987 D penny. Freshly struck, it shone with radiant copper light. It might have been bundled into a Federal Reserve shipment, transported by armored truck to a Denver bank, rolled into a paper sleeve, and exchanged with dozens of others. Perhaps it bought a newspaper the morning after the stock market crash of 1987, or dropped into a payphone, or clinked in the change jar of a small-town diner. Years later, worn but intact, it might resurface in a collector's hand, magnified under glass, its details scrutinized as though it were a rare artifact. In that moment, the coin transcends its function, it becomes a storyteller. The Denver Mint itself deserves a place in that narrative. Established in 1906, it stood as a fortress of precision, turning raw metal into instruments of trust. By 1987, its production capacity exceeded 5 billion coins annually. Behind secure doors, teams of engravers, engineers, and inspectors maintained a lineage of excellence. Each set leaving those walls carried not only the D Mint mark but also the reputation of generations of craftsmanship. The men and women who worked there seldom saw their names attached to the coins they produced, yet their collective efforts shaped the nation's daily rhythm of exchange. As the century approached its close, discussions emerged about the cost of producing pennies. Economists noted that the expense of minting exceeded the coin's purchasing power. Some advocated eliminating the denomination altogether. Yet public sentiment resisted. The Lincoln cent was more than arithmetic, it was heritage. Schoolchildren still filled penny boards, families still tossed them into fountains for luck, and countless phrases, "a penny for your tea." In the quiet world of numismatics, where passion often eclipses practicality, legends have a way of taking root and spreading across generations. The 1987 Lincoln cent has become one such legend, whispered about at coin shows, debated on collector forums, and imagined in the dreams of those who search through rolls of pennies by lamplight. It is a coin that seems ordinary to most but extraordinary to those who understand that even the smallest details, a faint doubling, a minting flaw, a shimmering red surface, can transform the mundane into the miraculous. Every collector has a story. Some recall the day they stumbled upon a coin that seemed different, the mint mark tilted slightly, the date thicker, the copper luster more radiant. Others remember finding a flawless 1987 penny tucked away in a drawer, untouched since the year it was struck. These small discoveries become milestones in personal history, moments that connect the individual to something larger. The ongoing chronicle of America's coinage across decades, collectors have devoted endless hours to studying these coins under microscopes, searching for hidden anomalies. The 1987 has long been rumored to exist in a variety of rare forms: a doubled die obverse where the motto "In God We Trust" shows a ghostly repetition, a repunched mint mark, where the D appears layered from multiple impressions, or a transitional error, perhaps struck on a leftover bronze planchet from earlier years. Each of these possibilities fuels endless speculation, and with speculation comes hope, the hope that one might hold a fortune in the palm of one's hand without even knowing it. Stories circulate through the numismatic community, sometimes grounded in truth, sometimes magnified by imagination. A tale from Colorado speaks of a retired mint worker who once claimed to have seen a batch of experimental strikes, coins tested for plating thickness, never meant to leave the facility. Another rumor tells of a collector who purchased a sealed mint bag from 1987 and discovered within it a handful of coins with mirror-like surfaces, proof-like in quality though not officially recognized as proofs. Whether fact or fable, these stories endure because they touch the heart of human curiosity, the belief that hidden treasures might exist in plain sight. To understand why such stories persist, one must understand the psychology of collecting. Collectors are not motivated solely by profit, they are driven by wonder. Each coin represents a fragment of the nation's identity, a small artifact of its technological and artistic evolution. The 1987 with its shining copper shell and delicate engraving, encapsulates an era when minting technology reached new heights of precision, yet the romance of imperfection still lingered. In every minute variation, in every faint error, collectors see the fingerprint of humanity pressed into metal. As years turned into decades, the marketplace for coins evolved. Grading companies such as PCGS, NGC, and Anax became the arbiters of condition and authenticity, using microscopes and lighting techniques to analyze even the smallest blemish. A 1987 cent graded MS69 red, if it exists, would represent near perfection, a coin with flawless fields, sharp details, and a brilliance undimmed by time. Such coins are exceedingly rare, and when they appear, their auction results ripple through the collector world like shockwaves. For those who watch the markets closely, the rise of a single 1987 penny to a four-figure price tag symbolizes the continued reverence for craftsmanship and rarity. But beyond the certified coins and sealed slabs lies the greater story of ordinary people rediscovering history through their change. In the age of digital payments, the penny often goes unnoticed, left in jars or discarded at store counters. Yet sometimes, a keen observer spots something unusual, a glint of red among brown tones, a date that calls to memory. That small spark can lead a person down the endless corridor of numismatic curiosity, where they begin to learn the language of die states, mint marks, and strike quality. The 1987 abundant yet beloved, serves as an entry point for countless new collectors. Coin dealers often speak of the magic moment when a beginner first recognizes the difference between a circulated coin and a mint state specimen. It's the moment when the copper glow of a preserved 1987 penny, untouched by fingers, reveals its luster under a halogen lamp. The radial cartwheel effect, those flowing bands of reflected light that move across the surface, seems almost hypnotic. It's then that the collector realizes they are not just looking at money but at miniature sculpture, at art born from machinery. The mythology surrounding the astronomical valuation, the idea that a single 1987 could be worth $15,600 million, has taken on a life of its own. It's a number not meant to be literal but symbolic, an expression of the coin's mythic stature. In the narrative of collecting, such exaggerations serve a purpose. They keep curiosity alive, reminding people that value is not always measurable by currency alone. It is measured by fascination, by the number of hearts stirred by a story. In coin clubs across America, the 1987 D often surfaces in conversation. Old-timers recall buying them by the roll, young collectors bring them to meetings, and experts debate whether subtle varieties exist yet undiscovered. In these gatherings, one can sense the shared reverence for the humble cent. Laughter mixes with serious discussion, and even as newer coins come and go, the Lincoln series remains the cornerstone of American collecting. Each participant knows that their search, whether it yields fortune or not, connects them to a community of seekers bound by curiosity and respect for history. There's a quiet ritual that plays out in homes and libraries across the world: a desk lamp angled just right, a magnifying loupe pressed against the eye, a small pile of pennies spread out like relics awaiting discovery. In that intimate space, the collector becomes both scientist and storyteller. The 1987 D Lincoln cent, magnified under glass, reveals a universe of textures, micro-scratches, dye flow lines, the faint relief of Lincoln's hair rendered in microscopic ridges. Each imperfection becomes a clue, a pathway to understanding how a piece of metal can embody human precision and imperfections simultaneously. As collectors examine their finds, they often wonder where each coin has been. Did it pass through the hands of a child buying ice cream, a veteran donating to charity, a student paying for a bus fare? Every coin carries the residue of countless lives, the invisible touch of history accumulating with each exchange. A 1987 D penny found today in circulation is more than 35 years old, yet it still performs its simple duty, bridging generations through its persistence. The broader history of the Lincoln cent continues to evolve. In 2009, the reverse design changed to celebrate the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, and in 2010, a new shield design replaced the memorial entirely. For collectors, these changes mark the close of an era. The 1987 D belongs to the long line of memorial reverses, and as time passes, it grows in nostalgic value. It is part of the generation of coins that defined the late 20th century, when analog machines still ruled, and craftsmanship was mechanical yet personal. To many collectors, the Denver Mint mark holds special significance. The Denver Mint, unlike its sister facilities in Philadelphia or San Francisco, produced circulating coins in massive quantities. The D has come to represent not just a location but a legacy of strength, reliability, and Western industrial power. The 1987 D is a child of that tradition, a coin that bears witness to the precision and pride of the Radic artifact, available to everyone regardless of wealth. Even as collectors chase perfection, there is poetry in the worn specimens. A 1987 D with fade canners and online marketplaces have made it possible to study and trade coins with unprecedented precision. The 1987 D, once overlooked, now appears in high-definition photographs that reveal every contour and reflection. Collectors across continents can share discoveries, debate dye varieties, and even crowdsource research. In this digital age, a coin struck nearly 4 decades ago finds new life in virtual communities, its legacy extended through screens and servers. Yet for all this progress, the essence remains tactile. There is still something sacred about holding a coin in one's hand, feeling the raised lettering beneath the thumb, tilting it toward the light. That simple motion, ancient, universal, connects the modern collector to the minters of old, to the artists who engraved Lincoln's image, to the laborers who handled raw metal in the Denver facility. The 1987 D penny becomes a bridge between worlds, between the industrial and in the quiet hum of the 21st century, the story of the 1987 D Lincoln cent continues to unfold, carried not only by collectors but by a digital generation that has inherited the same curiosity once kindled beneath the glow of a desk lamp. Now, the search for perfection has moved from kitchen tables to glowing screens. Collectors photograph their coins in microscopic detail, upload images to online forums, and invite the scrutiny of thousands of eyes around the world. What was once a solitary pastime has become a global conversation, a shared pursuit that crosses borders and languages. The 1987 D cent finds new life in this modern arena. High-definition images reveal textures that no human eye could have seen unaided. Every ridge of Lincoln's beard, every subtle flowline left by the die, can now be studied in astonishing precision. Digital archives preserve each coin's fingerprint for future generations, ensuring that even the smallest cent will not fade into obscurity. Collectors in Tokyo, London, and Karachi trade observations with hobbyists in Denver and Chicago, united by the same small disk of copper-plated zinc. The penny, once a purely American artifact, has become a citizen of the world. Online marketplaces transformed collecting from a local treasure hunt into a worldwide network of discovery. Listings for 1987 D pennies appear daily, some brilliant, some worn, each accompanied by stories. A seller might describe the shine as still red after 38 years. Another might point out a faint die crack across Lincoln's shoulder, inviting buyers to see art in imperfection. In this endless digital bazaar, value fluctuates not only with supply and demand but with narrative. A coin accompanied by a compelling story, a grandfather's collection, a mint bag sealed since Reagan's presidency, often commands attention beyond its metal worth. Grading services remain the gatekeepers of authenticity. Under sterile white lights, professionals evaluate each specimen with trained precision, assigning numerical grades that can elevate an ordinary coin to prestige. For the 1987 D, a top-graded piece gleaming with untouched luster can bring hundreds of dollars, sometimes more. But the true worth, collectors say, lies in the certification itself, the reassurance that one's coin is preserved, recognized, and immortalized in transparent plastic, safe from time's corrosion. To some, that plastic slab is not a cage but a monument, a small museum dedicated to perfection. Museums and numismatic societies now digitize their archives, displaying high-resolution scans of 1987 D cents alongside earlier and later issues. The result is a visual timeline, the dark bronze of 1909 shifting to the bright copper sheen of the 1980s, then the shield reverses of the modern age. Through this lens, the 1987 D cent stands as a marker of transition, modern enough to be mass-produced by automation, yet still rooted in artistry born of hand engraving. Each coin is a pixel in the long portrait of a nation's economic and cultural evolution. For many, the fascination with this single year's Denver issue lies in what it represents, the enduring dialogue between permanence and change. The penny's face value has remained constant for more than a century, yet its composition, design, and meaning have shifted with the tides of industry and society. In a world where currencies go digital and invisible, the cent endures as a reminder that value was once something you could hold, something that glinted under sunlight. At coin shows, beneath rows of glass cases and fluorescent lamps, one can still witness the reverence these coins command. An elderly collector leans over a display, magnifier trembling slightly in his hand. He points to a 1987 D-graded MS-68 red. The surface is flawless, the strike razor-sharp. He tells a younger visitor about the first roll he opened in the late 80s, about the smell of paper and metal mingling, about the joy of seeing uncirculated brilliance spill into his palm. The younger listener nods, perhaps realizing that the hobby is not only about the objects but about the memories they evoke. Each cent becomes a bridge between generations. Beyond exhibitions and sales, there is philosophy. Collectors often speak of the dialogue with time that occurs when one studies coins. The 1987 D cent, though only a small participant in this dialogue, embodies it perfectly. It reminds us that every artifact of civilization carries layers of meaning, the industrial ingenuity that produced it, the economy that circulated it, the personal stories that attached themselves along the way. The scratches and patina are not flaws but evidence of life lived. Just as wrinkles mark the passage of time on a human face, so too do these marks give the coin its soul. As modern economists debate the cost of minting versus the utility of the cent, the public continues to defend its existence. Polls show that many Americans simply feel attached to it. It is the coin of childhood piggy banks, of wishes tossed into fountains, of charity drives and school fundraisers. To remove it from circulation would feel, to many, like erasing a small piece of collective memory. The 1987 D cent thus stands as a quiet argument for sentiment in an age of efficiency, a testament that not all value can be measured in profit margins. Among numismatists, there is a saying, we do not collect coins, we collect history. The 1987 D Lincoln cent embodies that truth. It carries not only the image of Lincoln but also the ideals he represents. The inscriptions, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, E Pluribus Unum, are not relics of language but living principles, struck into metal so they might outlast generations. When collectors handle the coin, they handle those words, those ideals, those hopes cast into permanence, and yet, even as collectors cherish their pieces, the world beyond the hobby moves ever faster. Digital transactions dominate, wallets grow thinner, change jars sit untouched. Still, the penny survives. It circulates quietly, perhaps unseen, but always present, a survivor of centuries. In a way, its persistence mirrors the endurance of the values it bears: modesty, patience, continuity. It reminds a restless age that greatness can reside in the smallest forms. In this light, the mythical valuation of $15,600 million ceases to be absurd and becomes poetic. It speaks not to a literal market but to the magnitude of meaning humanity attaches to symbols. If a single coin can hold memories of a nation, the weight of its stories could indeed be priceless. The figure becomes an allegory for the infinite worth of cultural memory, beyond gold, beyond markets, beyond time. Late at night, somewhere in the world, another collector sits before a camera lens, adjusting the focus to capture the glow of a freshly discovered 1987 D cent. The image appears on a computer screen, copper radiance against a dark background. He posts it online, and within minutes, strangers comment from continents away, admiring, analyzing, celebrating. Through fiber optic cables and wireless signals, the humble penny continues its journey, connecting minds and hearts as surely as it once passed from hand to hand. There is something almost sacred in that continuity. The same metal that once jingled in pockets now travels through invisible networks, still sparking wonder. Technology has changed the medium, but not the message. The coin story remains the same, a story of endurance, identity, and beauty found in the commonplace. The 1987 D Lincoln cent stands, in the end, as more than a coin. It is a reflection of humanity's instinct to remember. We build monuments of stone and statues of bronze, but we also mint monuments small enough to carry in our pockets. Each cent is a fragment of civilization, a reminder that even in the rush of modern life, we still seek meaning in tangible form. And as long as there are hands to hold it, eyes to study it, and hearts to treasure it, the story of the 1987 D will never truly end. Its luster may fade, its copper may darken, but its essence, its quiet testimony to the passage of time, will remain. For in that small disc lies an idea that transcends eras, that value, real value, is born not of rarity or wealth, but of connection, memory, and the enduring human desire to keep a piece of history close. In the years following the turn of the millennium, the 1987 D Lincoln cent began to gain a strange reputation among collectors. It was no longer just another coin from the late 20th century, it had become a whisper in numismatic circles, a symbol of possibility, of hidden fortune, of the thrill of rediscovery. The legend grew not because of official rarity, but because of stories, accounts of unusual specimens surfacing in unexpected places, of uncirculated rolls discovered in forgotten drawers, of near-perfect examples preserved by time itself. In basements, attics, and safety deposit boxes, the quiet rustle of history continued. Someone, somewhere, would stumble upon an old jar of coins, the copper glinting faintly in the dust-filled light. Fingers would sift through the pile, and there it would be, 1987 D, the familiar bust of Lincoln, the tiny D mint mark below the date. At first, nothing remarkable. But under closer inspection, perhaps the luster remained pristine, perhaps the die strike appeared unusually sharp. The finder's heart would quicken. Could this be one of the exceptional few, one of those elusive near-perfect examples worth thousands, or perhaps, in the mythic telling, millions? Collectors speak of the moment of realization. It is the instant when an ordinary object reveals its extraordinary story. Under magnification, the 1987 D can surprise even seasoned experts. Minute doubling on the date, subtle misalignments, die cracks forming delicate lightning patterns across the obverse, all rare, all sought after. Each anomaly transforms a mass-produced coin into a unique relic, a one-of-a-kind chapter in the book of minting history. The Denver Mint of that year, operating with mechanical precision, produced more than 4 billion cents. Yet within that vast ocean of metal, a few stood apart, struck at the perfect temperature, under immaculate pressure, on flawless planchets. These coins gleamed with mirror-like brilliance, preserved in rolls that never met circulation. For decades, they lay dormant, sealed in paper, hidden from light. And then, one by one, they began to emerge. Auction houses took notice. In climate-controlled rooms under the hum of fluorescent lights, coins were displayed on black velvet. The 1987 D, graded MS68 or higher, began fetching sums once thought unimaginable for a modern cent. The room would fall silent as the auctioneer lifted a slabbed coin to the light, the copper glow reflecting in dozens of eyes. The bidding would start modestly, then rise, voices overlapping, excitement mounting. When the gavel finally fell, applause would echo, not just for the price achieved, but for the story validated. Each sale rekindled the mythos. Reporters wrote of a resurgence of copper passion, of the penny reborn as an artifact of national nostalgia. YouTube channels and online forums amplified the excitement, turning humble coins into viral sensations. Millions watched videos of collectors revealing their finds, each new discovery a spark that reignited fascination across generations. For young enthusiasts, the idea that a coin so small, so common, could be worth a fortune was electrifying. It became not just about money, but about wonder, the possibility that treasure could still exist in plain sight. Stories began to circulate of extraordinary finds. A man in Colorado reportedly discovered a flawless 1987 D in a jar of coins saved by his grandfather, a piece later graded near perfection. Another collector in Florida unearthed a sealed mint roll purchased decades earlier from a bank vault, every coin inside blazing red as though struck yesterday. Even if many of these tales blurred fact and folklore, they fueled the collective imagination, proving that the thrill of discovery was as alive in the digital age as it had been a century earlier. Behind every coin is a story, and behind every collector, a dream. The 1987 D became more than a collectible, it became a vessel for emotion, a reminder of continuity in a rapidly changing world. Each rediscovery was a quiet triumph over time. When a collector holds one between their fingers, they are not simply holding metal. They are holding 1987, the music of that year, the cars that rolled off factory lines, the laughter of people now gone. The coin becomes a portal to memory. In Denver, where the mint still operates under the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, employees sometimes speak of legacy. Generations of minters have come and gone, but the machines still hum with purpose, pressing history into metal. The 1987D is part of that lineage, a testament to precision, repetition, and faith in durability. Each press stroke, each coin ejected, each sound of metal on metal was an act of creation. No one could have guessed that decades later, people would look back with such reverence at something so routine. Some scholars of culture and economics argue that the value of coins like the 1987D lies not in scarcity but in significance. When society assigns importance to a symbol, that symbol becomes a mirror. The penny mirrors America's story, its resilience, its contradictions, its unending dialogue between progress and preservation. As the world shifts toward cashless commerce, the penny lingers like an echo, whispering of a time when every transaction was tactile, when value was counted by touch and sound. The 1987D also embodies a deeper philosophical truth, that the measure of worth is often subjective, born from emotion as much as from economics. $15,600 million, an impossible figure, yes, but in another sense, a fitting one. Because how do we price nostalgia? How do we quantify the shared heartbeat of millions who see themselves reflected in a coin's glow? True value is not in the metal or the market, it is in the connection it forges between past and present, between stranger and stranger. Collectors who chase the 1987D often describe it as a calling. They speak of sleepless nights spent studying varieties, of long drives to coin shows, of the joy of unwrapping an unsearched roll. To them, the journey itself is sacred. Finding the perfect coin becomes a metaphor for finding perfection in life, a reminder that persistence, patience, and passion still matter in an age of instant gratification. Among the stories told in hushed voices is that of a collector who dedicated 3 decades to assembling the finest known set of 1987D cents. He traveled across the country, trading, selling, buying, chasing microscopic improvements. When he finally completed his set, he said it wasn't the coins themselves that mattered, it was the community, the knowledge shared, the friendships forged. His coins, sealed in holders, sat quietly on display, but the true treasure was invisible, the human connection they had inspired. The 1987D cent thus stands at the crossroads of economics and art, of material and meaning. It reminds us that history is not confined to textbooks, it circulates in our pockets, whispered through copper and zinc. Each rediscovered coin breathes new life into that history, reminding us that no era ever truly disappears. As Part 5 closes, the camera of imagination lingers once more on a single penny resting in the palm of a hand. Its surface glows softly under a shaft of light. Around it, the world is fast and digital, yet this little coin remains still, a relic of another pace, another world. The narration slows, the sound of a heartbeat fades into the quiet hum of time. The 1987D Lincoln cent has endured decades of change, survived the melting pot of circulation, and emerged not as currency, but as memory, polished by countless human stories, shining with meaning beyond measure. As the years turned quietly into decades, the 1987D Lincoln cent settled into its place within the grand mosaic of numismatic history. It was no longer a coin defined merely by mintage numbers or metallic composition, it had become a symbol of endurance, an artifact that transcended its humble purpose. What began as billions of routine strikes at the Denver Mint had evolved into something timeless, a chapter that historians, collectors, and dreamers continued to interpret anew with every passing generation. In museums and archives around the world, the 1987D occupies a small yet meaningful presence. Within glass cases, under soft halogen light, the coin gleams with a quiet dignity. Visitors pause, lean closer, and read the small inscription that has defined it for over a century: "In God we trust," words that have outlived presidents, wars, and entire technological ages. Each visitor sees something different in that reflection: patriotism, nostalgia, artistry, or perhaps simply the comforting memory of childhood when pennies still clinked at the bottom of a pocket. Curators speak of coins as portable history. The 1987D exemplifies this idea with perfect clarity. It carries in its metal the echoes of an industrial nation in the 1980s, factories humming, cities expanding, economies shifting, and culture evolving toward a digital horizon. Its creation coincided with a world in transition, a bridge between analog and digital, between tangible and virtual. And now, in the 21st century, it stands as a relic of that threshold moment, proof that even in the age of cryptocurrency and digital ledgers, the tactile world still holds power. In recent years, technological innovation has breathed new life into numismatics. High-resolution scanners, three-dimensional imaging, and digital databases allow researchers to catalog even the most microscopic varieties of the 1987D. Advanced spectral imaging reveals trace elements in the metal, identifying the unique fingerprint of each batch of planchets used that year. What once required magnifying lenses and trained eyes now unfolds in pixels and code, enabling discoveries impossible for earlier generations. Through this fusion of science and art, the 1987D continues to evolve, not as a static object but as a living document in the archive of human curiosity. Grading companies have refined their methods, employing artificial intelligence to analyze dye patterns, luster flow, and minute wear. The 1987 D coins, once thought ordinary, now find themselves re-evaluated, sometimes reclassified, their histories rewritten by data. This is how history progresses, not in leaps, but in careful rediscovery, in the re-examination of what we thought we already knew. Each regraded coin becomes a new piece of evidence, each new insight another verse in the story of a coin that refuses to be forgotten. Private collectors continue to nurture the legend. Some keep entire boxes of 1987 D rolls sealed, believing that the future will reveal hidden treasures within. Others search tirelessly for mint errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and doubled dies, knowing that rarity can emerge from imperfection. These coins, flawed yet fascinating, embody the paradox of collecting, that beauty is sometimes born of mistakes, and yet, for many, the value of the 1987 D lies not in rarity but in ritual. There is something almost sacred in the act of holding a coin, studying it, and preserving it for those yet unborn. It connects the present to the past, the collector to the countless hands that once exchanged it. Each cent is a time capsule, sealed by the rhythm of daily life and reopened decades later by curiosity. In the digital realm, the 1987 D has achieved a second immortality. Across platforms, YouTube, Instagram, online auctions, numismatic blogs, images of the coin circulate endlessly. Viewers watch videos of collectors discovering brilliant examples in circulation, their voices trembling with disbelief. Thousands comment, sharing their own stories, their own hopes of finding a small miracle in their change. The myth continues to spread, fueled by wonder and imagination, by the eternal human dream that treasure might still lie hidden in plain sight. Historians often say that the objects we choose to remember are reflections of ourselves. The 1987 D reveals our collective desire to preserve meaning in a world of constant change. It reminds us that progress does not erase the past, it builds upon it. The penny, though devalued in economic terms, remains rich in symbolic worth. Its color, its texture, its design, all are reminders that beauty often endures in the simplest things. For those who lived through the 1980s, the 1987 D stirs personal memory, the scent of new currency, the sound of vending machines, the jingle of spare change. For those born later, it represents discovery, the excitement of finding something old and meaningful in a world overflowing with newness. The coin thus bridges generations, its quiet persistence weaving together stories from across time. Economic analysts periodically predict the end of the penny, citing costs and practicality. Yet, like a stubborn echo, the coin endures. It survives legislation, debate, and indifference. It continues to pass from hand to hand, unseen yet present, its face worn but recognizable. Perhaps this persistence is what makes it so captivating, the refusal of something small to disappear, the way a simple object can outlast systems built to replace it. In educational settings, teachers use the 1987 D cent to illustrate history, art, and metallurgy. Students learn how coins are made, how designs are chosen, how symbolism shapes identity. Some trace Lincoln's profile with their fingers, realizing that art, even in its smallest form, can carry ideals larger than nations. Others learn about the shift from copper to zinc, about inflation and economics, understanding that every coin tells a story not only of people but of systems and values. In art galleries and creative projects, the penny reappears as a motif. Sculptors, painters, and photographers incorporate it into installations exploring time, memory, and value. One artist encased hundreds of 1987 D cents in resin, forming a translucent wall that caught light like a field of fireflies. Another composed a mosaic of Lincoln's face entirely from tarnished pennies, the different shades of oxidation forming a portrait both familiar and haunting. Through art, the coin's meaning expands beyond commerce into philosophy. It becomes a meditation on what endures. Numismatic conferences, too, have begun to feature special sessions devoted to the cultural significance of the modern cent. Panels discuss how the myth of the rare penny captures public imagination more powerfully than the reality of its mintage. Scholars note that the 1987 D, like the 1909 SVDB before it, has become a legend because people need legends, tangible proof that the extraordinary can emerge from the ordinary. The coin's continuing allure lies in that paradox. It is at once common and miraculous. Even the U.S. Mint has acknowledged the public's fascination. In periodic exhibitions and educational outreach, they highlight the evolution of the cent's design, including the years of the 1980s. Visitors learn how engravers balanced artistry and function, how every detail, from Lincoln's gaze to the texture of his coat, was carved with precision and purpose. The Mint's archives preserve plaster models, photographs, and the original dies, each artifact contributing to the living memory of the coin's creation. As the documentary lens widens to take in the present, one truth becomes clear: the story of the 1987 D is not just about metal, it is about meaning. The coin is a witness, a survivor, a messenger from a time when the tangible world still held sway. It tells us that even as technology advances, we remain creatures of touch, memory, and story. Somewhere tonight, under the glow of a desk lamp, a young collector examines a penny pulled from circulation. It bears the small d beneath 1987. The copper glints softly, reflecting not just light but the gaze of wonder. That simple moment, a child holding history, proves that the legend endures. The coin's value, whether measured in dollars or dreams, continues to grow in ways no economist can chart. The 1987 D. Lincoln cent, humble yet immortal, reminds us that greatness often hides in plain sight. It is the voice of a past that refuses silence, the weight of a story that never stops unfolding. And as long as there are hands to hold it, minds to study it, and hearts to cherish it, its luster will never fade. There comes a point in every story when facts give way to meaning, when the object at its center becomes more than the sum of its details. So it is with the 1987 D. Lincoln cent. Beyond its weight, its diameter, its metallic composition, and even its graded condition, there lies something ineffable, something that cannot be measured by microscopes or price charts. The coin has crossed a boundary. It has entered the realm of philosophy, of memory, of humanity's deep longing to hold time still. Every collector, every historian, every casual finder who stops to admire a penny shimmering faintly in the dust feels this quiet pull. It is the sensation of connection, a bridge between eras, between people long gone and those yet to come. The 1987 D. cent, struck in an age of accelerating change, embodies that paradox perfectly. It is both ancient and modern, both forgotten and unforgettable. If you were to hold one now, in the calm silence of a late evening, you might notice how light behaves on its surface. The glow isn't constant, it shifts with every movement, as though the coin breathes. Each glint of copper reflects a fraction of the world around it, a lamp, a face, a memory. And in that reflection lies the poetry of permanence, the idea that even something small can preserve the essence of countless moments. Lincoln's profile, though struck by machines, carries the hand of its original sculptor, Victor David Brenner. That hand, guided by vision more than a century ago, still speaks through metal. The lines of the beard, the calm but determined gaze, the lettering that encircles the portrait, these are brushstrokes of national identity, pressed into existence for all time. The 1987 D, though separated from Brenner's era by decades, continues that lineage like a note sustained in a symphony too vast to end. What, then, does this coin truly represent? Perhaps it represents endurance, not just of metal, but of meaning. In a century that witnessed revolutions in technology, communication, and thought, this coin has remained constant. It has witnessed the rise of the internet, the fall of empires, the expansion of markets, and the shrinking of distance. Through it all, it has remained, quiet and steadfast, as though reminding us that progress and memory are not opposites but partners in the human story. Value is a strange thing. Economists define it through scarcity and demand, through metrics and markets. But collectors, philosophers, and dreamers know another kind of value, the value of sentiment, of symbolism, of soul. The 1987 D. cent's supposed worth of $15,600 million is not a number meant for ledgers. It is a metaphor, a declaration that the worth of memory cannot be reduced to digits. It stands as a poetic exaggeration that tells a deeper truth, that the things which connect us to our past are priceless. The penny, after all, is humanity's smallest expression of worth. It represents the fraction, the overlooked, the humble. Yet in that humility lies greatness. It is democracy made tangible, a coin that belongs to everyone, regardless of wealth or status. To hold a penny is to participate in a shared story that stretches back generations. The 1987 D, like all cents before and after, is a reminder that history is not the property of kings and magnates, it lives in the hands of ordinary people. There is something profoundly human about the desire to preserve such objects. Archaeologists dig for pottery shards and tools, numismatists search for coins. Both pursuits are acts of remembrance. They are gestures of defiance against the erasure of time. To preserve a 1987 D cent is to say, this mattered. This was part of us. It is an act of faith, an insistence that meaning survives decay. In museums, under sterile lights, the coin sits quietly, yet it carries the heartbeat of millions who once exchanged it. It speaks in silence, telling stories not of kings but of workers, children, and dreamers, the people who built the world 1 cent at a time. In that sense, the coin is democratic poetry, written in copper and zinc. It is the story of a nation's perseverance, and by extension, of humanity's. When you study its design closely, you notice that Lincoln faces right toward the future. His gaze is not backward but forward, as though searching the horizon. Behind him, the word liberty stands firm, and above, the words "In God we trust" arc like a blessing. Together, they form a message not only of faith but of continuity. The coin tells us that freedom, trust, and progress are not abstract ideals, they are minted into the very fabric of our daily lives. Collectors often speak of the moment they first understood the emotional power of coins. It is rarely when they found something valuable, it is when they realized they were holding time. A penny from 1987 is not just a coin, it is that year itself, frozen in metal. It carries the pulse of a decade defined by change, the hum of cassette players, the crackle of television static, the optimism of a nation poised between the Cold War and the digital dawn. To touch it is to touch that moment, to bring it back to life for an instant, and so, as the story unfolds, the 1987 D becomes less an object and more an idea. It becomes a meditation on impermanence, on how we humans seek to defy it. The coin's durability contrasts our own fragility, its circular shape mirrors the cyclical nature of time. Perhaps that is why it fascinates us. We see in it what we cannot see in ourselves: endurance without aging, motion without decay. In a world where so much is ephemeral, messages vanish, data fades, trends dissolve, the 1987 D stands quietly as a counterpoint. It does not change with the times, it carries the times within it. Its face, worn or new, speaks a language older than words, the language of continuity. Imagine, years from now, a future generation discovering one of these coins. Perhaps it will be found in an antique shop, or buried in soil, or tucked away in a box of keepsakes. The finder, born into a cashless world, will turn it over curiously, reading the date, tracing the embossed face with a fingertip. They might not know its full story, but they will feel something, a connection, faint yet real, to all who came before. That spark of recognition is the immortality every culture seeks. The philosopher might say that the 1987 D is not merely currency but testimony, proof that meaning can reside in the smallest fragments of existence. Its shine, its simplicity, its persistence all remind us that time does not erase, it transforms. Each scratch, each imperfection, each patina of age is not damage but dialogue, a conversation between object and observer, between then and now, and so the coin continues to teach. It teaches patience, for value revealed over time. It teaches humility, that greatness can come in modest form. It teaches memory, that the smallest things often hold the deepest truths. In these lessons lies its true worth, far beyond the bounds of markets or metal. The 1987 D Lincoln Cent, like a quiet heartbeat, pulses through history. Its sound may be faint, but it endures, steady, rhythmic, eternal. It reminds us that even when nations change, technologies evolve, and generations pass, some symbols remain. They become anchors in the flow of time, guiding us back to the essence of who we are, beings who seek meaning, who find wonder in simplicity, who remember. As the lights fade in this chapter of the story, the camera of imagination draws close to a single coin lying on a table. Its glow is soft now, like the last ember of a fire. The narrator's voice falls to a whisper, almost reverent. This is not just a cent. This is a circle of history. A reflection of humanity's endless dialogue with time. A testament that even the smallest things can carry the weight of eternity. There is a certain poetry to the idea that a simple coin, born in a mint in Denver in 1987, can carry within it the pulse of an entire civilization. It is not just an American object, not merely a piece of currency, it is an artifact of humanity itself, a small, circular mirror that reflects how people everywhere have tried to measure worth, preserve identity, and defy time. The 1987 D Lincoln Cent is a whisper from a specific year, but its meaning is universal. In every corner of the world, people have pressed their stories into metal. The earliest coins of Lydia, struck more than 2.5 millennia ago, bore the image of a lion, a symbol of strength. The Romans minted emperors to project permanence. Medieval kings engraved crosses to remind their people of faith. The Americans, inheritors of this long lineage, chose liberty, trust, and history as their emblems. And in 1987, that tradition continued in the quiet hum of the Denver Mint, where millions of small copper-plated zinc discs rolled from presses, each carrying the profile of a man whose ideals had outlasted his life. What is remarkable is not just that the coin endures, but that it continues to speak. To a collector, it may tell one story, of rarity, design, and mint mark. To a philosopher, it tells another, of endurance and transformation. To a child who finds it on a sidewalk, it may speak only of curiosity and wonder. Yet in all these versions, the same truth glows: the coin is a vessel of meaning that shifts with its holder, forever changing and yet forever the same. In this sense, the 1987 D cent becomes a kind of language, a universal script written in metal. Its value is not only numerical but narrative. It tells the story of labor, of miners who unearth the raw materials, of engineers who design machines to press perfection from pressure, of artists who shaped ideals into images. It tells the story of exchange, of countless hands passing it from palm to palm, of markets, stores, bus fares, and children's pockets. And it tells the story of time, of how something so small can witness decades of human evolution while remaining unchanged in itself. To understand its power, one must understand the paradox of the penny. It is both worthless and priceless. Economically, it holds almost no purchasing power. Philosophically, it holds immeasurable weight. That tension between the measurable and the meaningful is what gives it its strange magnetism. We live in an age that values what can be quantified, yet here is an object that resists such measurement. It insists on meaning that cannot be calculated, and in that resistance, it becomes sacred. Sacred not in a religious sense, but in the sense of reverence, the way ancient people revered stones, amulets, and relics because they seem to connect the material world to the invisible. The 1987 D cent performs the same function. It connects people not only to their nation's history but to the larger human story of making meaning from matter. It is the modern relic, the secular icon, the humble proof that we are a species that remembers. Imagine the journey of one coin. It leaves the Denver Mint shining, flawless, its details crisp. It travels across the country, through wallets and drawers, over counters, between strangers who will never know each other's names. Each touch leaves a trace, a fingerprint, a scratch, a memory. By the time it returns, perhaps decades later, to a collector's hand, it carries the invisible story of thousands of lives. It has bought candy, paid tolls, been dropped on sidewalks, slipped into donation jars, and perhaps even crossed oceans in a tourist's pocket. No object, save perhaps a letter or photograph, gathers human energy so intimately. To hold such a coin is to hold a map of human contact. Its surface is like a palimpsest, a manuscript rewritten again and again, with traces of every hand still faintly visible. The shine fades, the edges wear, but the story deepens. That is the quiet miracle of coins. They do not vanish like paper or dissolve like sound. They endure, carrying their witnesses within them. Some philosophers have compared money to language. Both are systems of trust, ways of assigning meaning to the unseen. If that is true, then the 1987 D Lincoln cent is a single word in humanity's vast poem of exchange. Its meaning changes, yet it remains essential. It speaks of faith, faith that value exists, faith that promises can be kept, faith that a symbol can stand for something greater than itself. It is strange to think that in this small round piece of metal lies the echo of an entire civilization's values. The face of Lincoln, the word liberty, the national motto, these are not random choices. They are declarations, pressed into permanence, repeated billions of times so that the ideals of a nation might survive its uncertainties. In this way, every cent becomes both mirror and message, reflecting what a society believes about itself at that moment in time. In 1987, the United States was a country in transition, moving from the analog world toward the digital one, from paper to pixels, from the tactile to the virtual. The Lincoln cent, unchanged in design since 1959, became a quiet constant amid the transformation. It was a physical anchor in a world that was beginning to drift into code and screen. Perhaps that is why collectors today feel such nostalgia for it. It represents a touchable connection to a more tangible age now. In a century when coins are disappearing from daily use, the 1987 D becomes a relic of a nearly vanished experience, the act of touch in a transaction, the weight of metal in the hand. It reminds us that value once had texture, that trust once had weight. Its roundness, its coolness, its glint, these sensory qualities once defined how people understood worth. In remembering them, we remember ourselves, and yet, the coin is not only a symbol of what is lost, it is also a promise of what endures. For even as economies go digital, as physical currency fades, the meaning behind it remains. We will always seek tokens, whether metal, paper, or digital, that embody our faith in exchange and continuity. The 1987 D, in this sense, is both artifact and prophecy, a record of what we were and a foreshadowing of what we will become somewhere, perhaps in a collector's velvet-lined case, perhaps forgotten in a box in an attic, lies one perfect example of this coin. Its surfaces gleam as they did the day it left the mint. Around it, light gathers like memory itself, soft and golden. It waits, not for a buyer or an appraiser, but for a storyteller. For someone who will pick it up and see not just metal, but meaning, because the story of the 1987 D is, ultimately, the story of us. Of our desire to preserve, to remember, to believe that even the smallest fragments of our world can hold eternity. The coin's circular shape is not accidental, it is symbolic. It has no beginning, no end. Like history, it turns endlessly, connecting the past to the present and both to the future, and so the film slows, the music softens, and the narration lowers to a near whisper. The coin spins once, catching the light, and then comes to rest. For a moment, everything is still. The camera lingers. The viewer feels the silence not as emptiness, but as presence, the presence of time itself, held in copper and zinc. The voice returns, quiet but certain. The worth of this coin is not in its metal, nor in its market price, but in its meaning. It is the story of value made visible, of history made tangible, of humanity made eternal. The 1987 D Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it is a witness. And as long as one person remembers, as long as one light still reflects off its surface, its story will never truly end. There is a silence that follows the passing of centuries, a silence filled not with absence but with memory. In that silence, the 1987 D Lincoln cent still speaks. It does not shout. It does not demand to be seen. It simply exists, quietly echoing through time like a heartbeat too small to measure yet too steady to forget. Every civilization leaves behind its voice, and this coin, modest though it is, has become one of ours. When the presses at the Denver Mint struck their final run of 1987 cents, no one imagined they were creating a relic that would one day invite meditation. It was meant for pockets, for change trays, for the simplest exchanges of everyday life. Yet, like all artifacts that survive their function, it has transcended its origin. The longer it endures, the more it gathers meaning built not by decree, but by experience. Each generation projects itself onto it, reading in its gleam whatever it most needs to believe about endurance, justice, and value. The beauty of such endurance is that it unites people who would never otherwise meet. Somewhere, a young collector in another century turns the coin over under the glow of a desk lamp, seeing the same tiny details that fascinated a child 4 decades earlier. Across oceans and languages, across divisions of belief or nation, the same image, the same profile of Lincoln, becomes a common language. The coin does what politics and philosophy often cannot. It reminds us that humanity shares a single pulse. This, perhaps, is the true miracle of the 1987 descent. It erases borders without erasing identity. It holds the symbol of a nation, yet it invites universal recognition. The face of Lincoln, worn smooth in some examples, sharp and youthful in others, becomes an emblem of human perseverance itself. His gaze, carved more than a century before this particular coin was struck, still looks forward. That direction, always forward, is the secret encoded in copper and zinc. The coin's incredible supposed market value, $15,600 million, sounds like fantasy. Yet fantasy is sometimes the language of truth. The number does not measure wealth, it measures reverence. It expresses what cannot be accounted for in ledgers, the emotional magnitude of time preserved. The value is a metaphor, an act of awe made numeric. For how else could one quantify the worth of something that outlives its creators, that carries their hopes into eras they could not imagine? Imagine a future archaeologist, centuries from now, brushing dust from a small metal disc found in the ruins of a forgotten city. The light catches a faint outline of a man's face, the word liberty, a date 1987, and a tiny D. That archaeologist, holding the coin between gloved fingers, feels the weight of an entire vanished age. In that instant, the barrier of time collapses. The people who minted and used the coin live again, if only for a heartbeat, within the mind that remembers them. That is immortality, not of bodies, but of symbols. Coins, like words, are designed to circulate. Their meaning grows not when they are kept still but when they move. And yet, paradoxically, the collector's act of preservation is what allows circulation to continue across centuries. Every time a 1987 descent is placed carefully in a display case, every time a story is told about it, it is being passed along in a different way, from mind to mind instead of from hand to hand. The economy becomes spiritual, the exchange becomes eternal. Perhaps that is why the coin has become a quiet icon in modern numismatics. It is no longer merely sought for profit but revered for its story. The scratches on its surface are no longer flaws, they are signatures of life. Each mark is an annotation written by history itself. Under magnification, those scratches become landscapes, valleys and peaks carved by contact and time. They are the fingerprints of existence. If one listens closely enough, one might almost hear them. The faint clinking of countless coins in jars and drawers, the hum of minting machines, the laughter of children saving their first cent, all blending into a single, continuous sound. It is the sound of continuity, the music of a civilization speaking to itself through metal. In that music, the 1987 D holds a single note, clear and unwavering, resonating long after all else fades, and yet, even this endurance is fragile. Metal corrodes, mints close, economies evolve. Someday the last 1987 D cent may wear down until Lincoln's image disappears completely. But disappearance is not the same as loss. The memory of it, recorded in words, films, and minds, will persist. The coin will continue to exist as story, as myth, as lesson. It will live where all human creations finally live, in imagination. That imagination is what keeps humanity alive across time. We build monuments, write books, compose songs, and mint coins, all to declare that we were here and that what we believed mattered. The 1987 D cent stands among those declarations. It may be small, but in its smallness lies perfection, a circle of intention, a promise that even the tiniest creation can carry the weight of immortality. The narrator's voice grows softer now, slower, as if approaching the edge of a great silence. The camera drifts over fields, cities, rivers, the landscapes that gave the coin its purpose. In each place, someone once held it, spent it, lost it, or kept it. The coin, indifferent yet faithful, recorded all of it without words. Its message is not loud, it is patient. It waits for those who will listen, and when they do, they hear the simplest truth of all, that value is not in possession but in remembrance. A coin's worth is not measured by how many hands it passes through, but by how deeply it is remembered. The 1987 D. Lincoln cent endures because we choose to remember it. We give it life each time we tell its story, each time we see our reflection in its faint, circular mirror somewhere. In that reflection, the face of Lincoln merges with our own. His calm gaze, cast in metal, becomes the gaze of every human who has ever hoped to leave something behind. It is the look of continuity, of courage, of quiet immortality. And in that merging, the coin achieves what all art, all history, all creation seeks, to make us feel that we are part of something endless. The scene fades. The coin rests in an open palm, catching the last trace of sunlight before night falls. The voice, now barely more than a whisper, speaks one final line for this chapter: time will forget many things, but not the touch of meaning pressed into metal. As long as a single coin remains, as long as a single person remembers, history will never be silent. The world turns, seasons fold into years, and years into silence. Cities rise and fall, currencies change their forms, but the 1987 D. Lincoln cent continues to exist in the still corners of drawers and hearts. Time has thinned its shine, but not its meaning. It remains what it always was: a whisper of human hands, a fragment of our endless attempt to capture time and call it ours. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, a soft metallic pulse echoing across generations. It is the sound of moments repeating, of history breathing. In that sound, there is a promise: nothing meaningful is ever truly lost. The coin's journey began in fire, in the furnace of the mint, where blank discs met pressure and light and were given identity. Each strike of the die was an act of creation, an imprint of purpose. And though billions were made, each was still singular, destined for its own small path through human life. Some vanished into soil, some gleam untouched in glass, some rest in memory alone. Yet together, they form a constellation of continuity, scattered across time like stars too faint to see, but always there for a moment. Imagine holding one of them. The copper surface, cool against your skin. The faint relief of Lincoln's face beneath your thumb. You turn it in the light, and the date, 1987, glimmers softly. Around you, the noise of the world fades, and what remains is the simple rhythm of your breath, the coin, and the idea that someone else, long ago, once held this same object with the same wonder. You are not alone in that instant. You are part of a chain that has no beginning and no end. That is the secret hidden inside the penny. It teaches connection between past and future, between maker and holder, between value and memory. It is the circle made visible, the endless loop in which all human stories revolve long after economies have gone digital, long after the last mint shuts down its presses. The image of this coin will endure. Artists will paint it, historians will write of it, and storytellers will speak its name as they recall an age when people carried faith in their pockets. It will stand as proof that even in the smallest things, humanity placed its trust, its hope, its reflection. The narrator's voice softens again, drawing the listener toward stillness. Every object has two lives: the life it was given, and the life we give it through memory. The 1987 descent has lived both. It has traveled the earth and it has traveled imagination. It has moved from commerce to consciousness, from metal to meaning. And in that transformation, it has become eternal. In the glow of its final image, the coin spins once more, perfectly balanced, suspended in the air between light and shadow. As it slows, its face catches one last reflection, a reminder that the past is not behind us, it circles within us. When it settles, silence returns, vast and tender. The voice returns, almost a breath: one coin, one story, one unbroken memory of who we were, and who we still are. Time moves on, but meaning remains. The frame fades to black, the music lingers a heartbeat longer, and then, only silence, the kind of silence that does not end, but waits, quietly holding the echo of everything that ever mattered.